This week on Crunch Week, Obama opines on net neutrality, Microsoft open sources .NET, and Twitter meets Wall Street. So I'm your host for Crunch Week this week, Kyle Russell, and I'm joined by...
I'm Alex.
I'm Ryan.
So
are we here to opine? Because I kind of like that idea.
Don't you like that word?
I don't know if I do. It's like a pine tree and like an O. I don't really... It's not really my jam.
Did you like English in college or before that?
Not really, no.
Okay,
that wasn't very good. My grammar is not very good.
Okay.
Ask Catherine.
So I guess our first topic, we'll start with you since you actually care about net neutrality.
I do.
So big things
Everyone
happened.
should care about net neutrality.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. That's a very fine point, youngin'.
Okay. I'm standing in for America.
Oh, well, we're standing up for America, so how about that?
Okay, so I'll jump in. Now I will sound informed. So there was some good news and some bad news about net neutrality this week, wasn't there, Alex?
It was a really, well, I don't know if it was good or bad per se. It was just really interesting. So the president, our president, finally stepped in and dropped this massive proposal for how he thinks net neutrality should work in America. He's like, Title II classification, the strictest possible rules.
Okay, what does Title II mean? Let's go.
Okay. Reclassifying broadband as a utility, so it has a much higher regulatory structure, and so Comcast and Verizon can't screw with it very much. Therefore, protecting the consumers against essentially these ISPs bending the marketplace. And the president had been in favor of this for a long time. Back in 2007, 2008, had spoken, but it never really said, here's my plan. Here's my formal pronouncement about what this should be. And it kind of shocked the shit out of everybody. No one really thought this was coming. And then the FCC shot back with a kind of snarky statement.
Was it the FCC?
Oh, it's Chairman Wheeler who says that he is, quote,
he says, I am an independent agency.
Tom Wheeler is a good human. I disagree with him on some things, but he is off the cuff, not always the most eloquent. So
I am not a dingo.
Yes,
That's my favorite
I am not
quote.
a dingo. Anyways, Ryan, what would your take on this?
I mean, what I think is interesting is that the FCC has obviously had no enforcement power for a really long time, but Obama basically just made it entirely clear that they have no enforcement power, by sort of going around them, I felt.
Well, he can't tell them what to do, but he can say, this is what I would really like it if you were to do.
Right.
So it's like a super PAC.
Why would a president who really wants that to happen appoint a former lobbyist for that industry to then regulate that industry?
So, that's a really fair point, and I really thought that was a correct argument for a long time. But I've spoken to Gigi Sohn at the SEC and other people that are there, and they really speak highly of Wheeler. They really say look, he had several different jobs in his career. That was one of them. He's also at BC and so forth. But now he has this view that his consumer or his customer is the public. And I don't know if they're a little biased, of course, there, but they really believe that he is actually impartial here. And so if he lands this, jokes on everyone who said that. I mean, the question is, can he find some way to get around? There's a lot of intricacy here. You can't just shout Title II and you're done, right? There's no Title II 1, you just waive over net neutrality and all of a sudden everything works out. It's a lot harder than that. And so I want to give him, at least for now, the benefit of the doubt in these last stretches to nail this. And we'll see. But it was good of the president to show up. Okay,
that's fair. I think that's a good point to transition to another surprise that happened this week. Microsoft with another one of its huge unveils saying that they are going to open source .NET. So for those who don't know, .NET is Microsoft's framework used for developing things across all of its platforms. So Windows Phone, Windows 8. There's some .NET stuff that used to be even in development for the Xbox 360 with XNA. So it's always kind of been on Linux and Mac in the form of Mono, which was kind of a weird reverse-engineered open source thing.
But they didn't build Mono themselves.
Right.
Okay.
And they were kind of cooperative, especially over time, starting in 2005 when .NET in Visual Studio 2005 actually started to become a big thing that people were using. They were kind of okay, we won't get in the way of this happening. And over time, with things they would promote Xamarin. I'm sorry that you don't care about enterprise
You literally
development.
killed the Lawler.
Okay, so
no, tell me why. Tell me why I care.
Okay, so this is kind of the broader trend of Microsoft is moving away from saying we want people to be on our platforms, building for our platforms, and paying for our stuff.
Right.
Where now it's okay, they're open sourcing .NET. They're letting you develop for. Okay, now if .NET's open source, that means it can be on Mac and Linux. That means if you have the skills and you're used to developing stuff in Visual Studio, you can develop things for Windows first, and then, oh yeah, look, now it's really convenient to put on those platforms. So that means that along with building apps that work there, okay, so now I'm using that. Where does the money start coming in for Microsoft? Oh, I'm using .NET already. I guess I'll build this on Microsoft Azure, the cloud platform. Azure. Sorry. I'll build on top of that cloud platform instead of Amazon or Google. And it's basically, it's the kind of the broader trend. I mean, along with Office and Windows dropping dramatically in pricing, making things available for free on certain device category sizes. Like, it's a huge transition. I mean, how would you like
Microsoft just giving shit away?
I mean, how do you feel about this?
It's freakish. I mean, I've been covering Microsoft for 3 or 4 or 5 years now, and like the company that I used to hang out with is just not there anymore. Like when I met them, they were talking about like live mesh and why Hotmail was going to take out Gmail. Like it was just a whole different company. Now they're like, yeah, we're going to give away Office for free on the iPad. You can totally like edit on it. And like, oh yeah, we're going to go work on Linux. And we're going to open source it. Yeah, we're on GitHub now. Okay. And you're just like, yeah.
So the actual, so broader trend aside, like how does that trend like factor into the numbers? I mean, you're the one here who seems to like follow Microsoft financials the most closely. How is there not a huge drop off of like billions of dollars of revenue by them saying each of these things are free now? Like, why isn't that happening?
Because if you look at O365, which is their Office as a Service product, it's one of the fastest growing products in the history of the company in terms of revenue. So they have 7.1 million consumer subscribers now on that, not to count probably a lot more than that on the corporate side. So they're transitioning these Office in a box revenues to service revenues over time, and they can kind of transition slowly because they have a huge momentum on their Office and Windows revenue side. They still sell a lot of PCs and a lot of copies of Office. So if they can slowly begin to transition that, they can really not debase these top revenues as they build the bottom revenues. Now, it's tough to do. This is not easy, right? I mean, Adobe's doing the same thing with Creative Cloud, right? Really tough transition. But if you stick the landing, as I've said like 18 times this show, sorry, if they pull it off, it can be very good for them long term in terms of their health. But it's a question of how it goes in the next 3 to 5 years.
So at least in Microsoft's case, they have a huge solid revenue base to like work with that transition. Now, another company that just had kind of a weird week with Wall Street was Twitter, who doesn't quite have that yet, but made a lot of effort, 7 or 8 hours worth of convincing to try and...
They spent like 9 hours trying to convince Wall Street that what they're doing is a good thing. And basically what it comes down to is, since Twitter's IPO, it hasn't really done that well. To put it lightly. But so they scheduled this analyst day meeting where they met with Wall Street and went through product roadmap, strategy, did like 2 hours of Q&A, all this shit.
And for a while, the stock was up huge, like 7.5%, right? It was
up after market, it was up like 6% or whatever, 7%, whatever it was. And so it seemed like they did a good job.
Does that happen often also, like a company saying, here's everything we've got for the next couple of years, please like us now?
Did they really have a choice, Ryan, to not lay it on the table? I mean, they've been getting whacked every earnings for slow user growth, and if they didn't show off they had a plan, I mean...
Well, I think what's really strange about it is the form in which they did it. Right? This is a technology company which basically put out its product roadmap to Wall Street instead of showing its product roadmap,
Hey users, here's what's coming next.
Yeah, exactly. And so it just seemed like a really, really strange forum for them to do that. So
while it seemed to go over pretty well with analysts for a while, there was one thing that kind of went a little viral. One of the slides they showed was not a mission statement, but a strategy statement with a little bit awkward wording. I screenshotted this.
So incredible.
They said that going forward, their goal is to reach the largest daily audience in the world by connecting everyone to their world via our information sharing and distribution platform products, and be one of the top revenue generating internet companies in the world.
All right, here's what happened.
That doesn't even sound like English.
They got drunk. They put some buzzwords into a salt shaker. I mean, it's random words.
There's so many problems with it where it's, okay, first off, Twitter's strategy statement should probably fit in 140 characters. 2, just the idea of connecting everyone via our digital distribution and sharing platforms products.
Isn't that what they do?
I mean, it's that should be easier to bring down, but then also be one of the top revenue generating companies in the world. Isn't that just kind of hand in hand with?
That's what everyone should.
But that's not what a lot of companies right now in Silicon Valley are aspiring to, right?
Post IPO.
Read a lot of these S1s and you'll see a lot of not revenue aspirations. I think that Twitter's comment on revenue is fine. I think it's good for them to say, like, we're going to make a lot of money. Because there's been some sniping in the press about, how fast they're going to grow on the revenue side. And even after they said that, people were like, making revenue is not a strategy. Yeah, it is.
Okay, so something I want to know really quickly is, did they actually address anything to say how, okay, user growth has slowed, but we still expect to have massive revenue growth? Did they say, like, how that, like, discontinuity is actually going to work?
Or even how they're going to bring new users in.
They addressed both. I mean,
okay, they did talk about bringing new users in. They actually addressed for the first time with hard numbers that I've seen users who are not logged in but going on Twitter because someone linked to Kim Kardashian's butt.
Right.
And apparently there's like 500 million monthly users who go on and that's something where it's like we all kind of assumed it, but how do you monetize it? And they're finally saying like we're thinking about that. And like, was that enough? Like just saying, oh yeah, they don't have 200. They don't have 250 million users. They have 750 million. Woo! Like, is that enough?
The last couple hours of the presentation was about how they're going to monetize the user base at a more effective level. One of the things they talked about was raising the overall ad load from, I think, 1.3% to more like 5% in time.
So we're going to see 3 times as many ads?
No, in the US, we're actually around 5% now, I think. So our ad load, but across the world, where it's a lot lower on mobile.
But the thing about that is...
Where do you see ads on Twitter?
On Twitter mobile client. On Twitter, the thing. You scroll, there's like the promoted tweets. And
but what if you use TweetDeck?
If you use TweetDeck or any of the third-party apps like Tweetbot, you do not see it.
No, TweetDeck is first party. They bought it.
TweetDeck or third party.
Oh, sorry, I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute, did I have that wrong the entire time?
No, you're sorry, you're right.
But they definitely laid out a case that they could generate a lot more money.
So
now,
the problem is they can say we're going to roll out more ads, but then you need actual people in those markets who want to target people in their markets with ads on Twitter. And I just don't know if like that base is there and if the tools are actually there to encourage them to do that.
They're investing in people on the ground in those countries, but I agree. Is there enough money there that's savvy enough to target Twitter? It's a relatively complex product if you don't use Twitter, right? You don't really know how it works. We'll see, but I am cautiously optimistic about that.
Okay. With that said, I think we're about out of time, so thanks for joining us this week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.